Yo, everybody, what's good? It's Tuesday night. You know what it is. It's Flyers Talk A2D. Tonight, as the show title shows you, we're talking about the shutout from last night. Flyers lose 4-0 to the New York Islanders, and apparently the New York Islanders have been busy off the ice as well, which is also going to lead us into talking about the trade rumors, more specifically the Flyers trade rumors. Who should they be linked to? Who are they going to look at? Who should they avoid? We're going to have so much fun tonight. We got a lot to talk about in an hour to do it. So let's hit it. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. You know what to do. Hit that share. It's time to get the conversation started, Robbie. Let's do this. It's time to drop the puck.
This is Flyers Talk A2D, like my man said, and we're powered by the doc. That is Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy, LLC, with 2 locations, Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You're in the South Jersey area, you're feeling that arthritic pain in the teens with this weather. So check out our doc, make them yours. Visit them, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Matt Tsutsuti is off this week, so you're stuck with me, but we do have this strong PK tandem with Brian Daly, yours truly, Rob Povey. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe for notifications to all your favorite shows here on A2D Radio. As Brian alluded to, with the Olympic roster freeze on February 4th upcoming, we'll discuss trade rumors linked to the Philadelphia Flyers. And does this shutout at the hands of the Islanders change Danny B and Jonesy's position heading into the freeze? But first, we want your opinion on our Facebook poll, which is the Flyers should inquire about adding a young center like Shane Wright to the roster, no matter the cost. Agree or disagree? We'll be reading your comments all throughout the podcast, which is available to download the minute we sign off from wherever you download your favorite pods. And Brian, if you noticed, I kind of tried to work in the cold temperatures and the freeze as much as possible as I welcome us in. Meanwhile, in Philly, you get plowed in, and that's the message from the peoples right there. Thanks, dickhead. But it's cold. It was a cold return for the Philadelphia Flyers, who came off a great West Coast trip. 2-0-1 during that trip, and some surprising affairs, giving up a game they should have won in Utah, but taking one against the best team in the NHL in the Colorado Avalanche. And they come home for a division game and they lay a goose egg. So it was a cold return for the Flyers. Should they be inquiring about adding a young center and changing up this roster? Do you agree or disagree, Brian?
I mean, I feel like this is a slam dunk agree. I mean, when you have a guy that's highly talented as a Shane Wright, or even anybody else that we're going to talk about later, and you're in a rebuild and you're finding yourself competing in the spot that they are, just a couple points out of a playoff spot for the Flyers, I think you absolutely have to 100%, take a shot, and you got to at least make an offer for a guy like Shane Wright. What he's going to bring to this team when he's in his prime, does he have some maturing to do? Yes. So there's something you got to worry about there with him. But I mean, he's a goal scorer, he can pass. He's really strong skater. He's getting stronger on faceoffs as he goes. He's a really good power play guy. This is a guy that, the Flyers fans should be aching to get the minute that they said that he was available for a trade. I would have had an offer in there 3 days ago, if I'm being perfectly honest. So, this is an easy slam dunk agree when a young stud, and these guys don't come available that often, but when a young stud becomes available via trade, and you're in the situation of the Flyers, and you have to inquire about his services and what it's going to take to get him.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Priz already in the house. Let's go, boys. Always glad to have my brother from another mother in the house, man. Hope you're feeling well in this. You might have warmer weather than us, but then again, there was that ice through the Midwest and Texas, so I'm
Mhm.
sure we're all chilling at this point. But yeah, it was, I won't lie, I'll start where I end here. And that is, I was once very high on Shane Wright entering the 2020 NHL entry draft. And I do believe he would fit into what Philly is doing here. And to a degree, I agree with this poll, mainly because the free agent talent pool is low. So you're only going to improve your team through a trade. But
Mhm.
where you lost me on this poll is the no matter the cost part, because I'll break it down, kind of tying into what you said, Brian. As it
Okay.
stands now, only 3 teams may make the playoffs from the Metropolitan. A win against the Isles would have positioned the Flyers in the top 3, but that did not come to pass. If the Flyers fall further out of this race, you almost have to shift from win now to win for the future, right?
Right.
And which, to Philly's credit, they've maintained both goals quite well through this rebuild, especially this season, and being where they are. So inquiring about a 22-year-old Wright would certainly qualify as that ladder in terms of winning for the future. Since, the once heralded prospect that I came to love has seen his stock plummet in his second full season for the Kraken and fourth overall, whether that be off the ice, mental, on the ice, just needing more further development. It's a long-term deal, but it fits in
Mhm.
the Flyers are trying to do here. But the cost is absolutely key. As the Flyers, they have young centers in the pipeline. But if you're Danny and Jones, you almost have to make that call. I wouldn't rush to make a deal before the February 4th roster freeze. And Seattle's return would need to be reasonable for me to pull the trigger. It's the cost but you have to inquire, and that's what the poll is.
Mhm.
Should they inquire? So I'll agree. I like to sit on the fence with my answers. That's what I do for the people.
No, I understand. I mean, if we're looking at we're through 51 games here in the season already, or at least Seattle is looking at his stats right now. 7 goals and 11 assists. I mean, those aren't the numbers that you're exactly wanting to see from him. But I also don't get to really see him that often, so I don't know who's on his line with him. Are the guys that he's playing with hindering his ability? Is it the system that they're running over in Seattle that maybe he's just not really clicking with? But I mean, to an extent, yeah, Robbie, I'm with you. The cost is definitely going to make a big part of whether or not I'm going to go for him. But yeah, this is a 22-year-old center. He's 6 foot, 192 pounds. You definitely have to get some strength up the middle, and you do definitely have some. You have some depth coming eventually at some point. The question for me is just how long is it going to take to get a guy like Jack Nesbitt ready to go? How long is it going to take for Jet Lachenko to get ready to go? Where does Jet even kind of have a ceiling with this organization? So there's still a lot of questions with some of these guys that are, playing center as far as depth goes. The question for me is, how long is it going to be until you see a guy like Shane Wright blow up to the player that he was expected to be coming out of the draft? So that's a big question I ask myself too, is are his stats going to remain this low forever? Is this also question should be, is this who Shane Wright's going to be for his career? I don't believe this is going to be who he is for his career. I think he's going to start putting up some better numbers, but I also think he needs to put himself in a better situation. And I think coming to Philadelphia would definitely be a better situation for Shane Wright.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it benefit one Trevor Zegras quite well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's worth taking a shot. I like right now. There's a lot of speculation, and it centers around the same 3 guys for the Flyers. Let's just be honest, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the Flyers were to sell on this season and move on for 2026, 2027, now is a short window to sort of maximize on your draft capital at this point for what you got. And they center around Owen Tippett and Bobby Brink, right? Because it's been mentioned ad nauseum, but eventually they need to free up the logjam at winger. So it makes sense to do that and trade from an area of strength, for an area that you're weak in. That just
Mm-hmm.
makes perfect business. Now that Risto is back and healthy, he's being, he would be shopped too as well. And we'll talk about, potential trade targets later on in the podcast. But in regards to, like who they could trade for a Shane Wright, what would be a fair price for you, Brian?
So I'm not putting Brink in this deal. I got Brink in another deal I think that you're going to like later on here in the show. I think a lot of the people are going to like too. So I'm going to give you a little tease there, a little this. So for this particular deal for Shane Wright, I would probably package Aristolainen, and I would probably package a future first. And I think that might be enough, honestly. I mean, the one thing that I think Seattle needs is offensive help. I mean, you could probably throw a depth piece in there for sure. Maybe like a Jetlachenko. I mean, maybe you send him with a first and maybe Risto. You get Shane Wright, and maybe you get like a later pick for this year or next year or something like that. Maybe like a mid pick, something along those lines. Obviously, it's going to take I think a significant deal to lure a 22-year-old top 5 prospect away from a team like Seattle. But I definitely think he's I don't think he's meshing in that organization at all. So I would call up Ron Francis, and that would be my offer. Give me Shane Wright and give me a 4th or a 5th round pick, and I'll even go lower and say a 6th. And I'll give you Ristolainen for defensive help to fill that void of Shane Wright, Jetlachenko, and I'll give you a 2020 one of the 2027 firsts, and see if that gets the deal done, or at least get the conversation rolling.
All right. I mean, it is a former first-round pick, 4th pick overall, so the price is still going to be high despite the 18 points in 51 games played. They're not going to sell for the cheap. I like what you put out there. I would be fine with that. At this point, I love the way Bobby Brink finishes. So for me, Bobby Brink's off the table, but unfortunately, I think it's going to take a Bobby Brink to get a deal like that done, right? Or an open tip. Oh, and Tip, I agree with Priz that Tippett has to stay. He's on a sweetheart of a deal as the cap goes up, which is a great point. He's one of the only players to get 20-plus goals in consecutive seasons, and you got to like what he's building up here. So, unfortunately, because of where the area is that they're full in terms of the prospect pool, you're going to need a spot for Porter Martone. Is Bobby Brink occupying that spot? Can you convert that to a Shane Wright? But to me, I got to see a little bit more from Shane Wright before I'm giving up either of that, because I believe you asked the question before in terms of where Jack Nesbitt is and where Jetlachenko is, right? I think Jetlachenko's at the point where you've gotten his beak wet twice. Now it's time to roll. Now it's time to give him serious amount of games to prove his worth on this level, right? And if you do trade from the right wing standpoint, then there's no excuse for Michkov not to do the same.
Yeah.
Right. I like his development, how he's developing on the left-hand side, and those who are critiquing Tocchet for limiting him to the left-hand side, that's only getting his area of game growing, because Tocchet, we said he's the player's coach, right? So he's going to know what's good for a player and what's not, and I got to trust in that. Michael Hayes chiming in. How are you feeling about the Utah Mammoth already being in a playoff spot, Brian?
No shock to me, honestly. They're a team built to be in the playoffs. I think they're finally starting to gel a little bit together. And any team that has Logan Cooley, JJ Peterka, a couple other really nice pieces in there, Miguel Sergachev, you're getting the goaltending. This team's destined for the playoffs. This team is so good, and they're going to be good for a long time.
Yeah, agreed. You know what's also good to do, Brian? Hit that hit that share, drop your thoughts in the comments, as we've been doing so far, we're going to continue to roll based on the comments. Michael Hayes, I pitch a trade to Utah and the Kings for picks for Ristolainen and future considerations. Risto goes to Utah, a team in better position. You get picks back. I like it. I
I
like
don't
that a
hate it.
lot.
No,
Yeah.
I don't hate that at all. I just have bigger fish that I'm looking at right now, and there's some really intriguing names that are starting to pop up in the trade market. That for the Flyers, there's two big names that I'm looking for. One of them we're talking about right now, and that's Shane Wright. I'm trying to get him. Listen, if we can get him at a lower price and then watch him explode, I would absolutely love that. That would
Right.
be even better because then that means you can put a little bit more towards the other guy that we're going to talk about later. For me,
Right.
that's going to, for me, that's, and as much as I love him and I want to keep him, but I think he's going to be a big piece is getting this other guy is using Bobby Brink. So if we can get Shane Wright for a little bit of a cheaper deal, great, because I would go all in on this other guy.
Right. And we will get to that. We'll definitely get back to more trade rumors linked to the Flyers later in the show. But first, we got to, talk about it, fam. The Flyers return home and take a nasty shellacking by the New York Islanders, who, were coming off a pretty piss poor game themselves where Patrick Waugh benched the whole line, or healthy scratched, a whole line, including the team's captain, sending a real message that anybody could be scratched at any time. And then they come in and put up a nasty 4-0 shutout on the Philadelphia Flyers. Ilya Sorokin absolutely has the Flyers number, making another 21 saves for the shutout. That's his NHL leading 6th shutout for the season and 28th of his career. It was also Sorokin's 5th shutout in 17 games against the Flyers, his most against any NHL team.
Yeah. He's a monster. What's up, Brad? Brad chiming in, saying, "Hey guys, chiming in. And here, Flyers were doing well in the beginning, but now I'm getting worried." We talked about it last week, so as soon as we're done here, Brad, go back to the show from last week. We talked a little bit more about what may be happening with the team right now. Definitely think they're hitting a wall. There's definitely some confidence issues within this clubhouse right now, but I definitely think the Olympic break is coming quickly, and they sure as hell need it, and it's definitely going to help them. But I mean, Ilya Sorokin, that is somebody who I hate seeing this team play because for like you said, he's got 5 shutouts against his team. It doesn't matter how well the Flyers play out in front. He's always better. I feel like it's every time they play like Shesterkin or something like that. I mean, there's a reason why Ilya Sorokin's a top 5 goaltender in this league. He's just outstanding. The Flyers were a little bit off last night. They were definitely a little bit slower, especially in the second half of the game. They definitely had a couple opportunities where they could have gotten a couple goals here. Sorry, my brain just shut off for a second. It's been a long day. But
and we're on the PK.
Yeah. But you gotta be able to cash in on some of these opportunities that they're getting, and they weren't able to do that. But then again, you're also facing one of the best goaltenders in the league, and sometimes those games it's just gonna happen. And with the way that this team's playing in front of Sam Ersson right now and how he's been playing, I think Ersson's been playing better than he was earlier in the year. Has he been fantastic since? No. The Utah game, I thought he played pretty well against Colorado for the most part. That offense just absolutely exploded. But this team is so young right now. They're going to have those games where they throw up 7 goals and then they're going to get a goose egg the next night. But it's how they respond to some of these situations that is going to just make them better. And it's something that they're going to continue to learn as they go on the season.
No, agreed. It's part of the growing pains. It's part of the process. But they were certainly hitting a wall, like you were saying to Brad. After the game, Philadelphia coach Rick Tocchet said, "We had no energy. I'm disappointed. That's a division game after coming off the road. I don't know if anybody played well." That's harsh words from the head coach. And it's good. The effort seriously lacked there. They look good on the power play for a change. Like JJ said, everything but the result. I like the passing. I love the decision making, and they were, getting a lot of shots on net. Brad going on saying, "I feel that only one is carrying the team is Trevor Zegras." Yeah, I mean, Owen Tippett's been playing well though too. Bobby Brink has been playing well since coming back from injury, but Zegras has been, like he had that hot start and then he kind of regressed a little bit, but ultimately for the season, he's been a winner of an asset and a pickup for the Flyers as they're continuing to rework this roster. But we're seeing it. It is a young roster, Brian. Like we alluded to that we talked about last week, and coming into this Olympic break, we discussed that they were going to be one of the teams that were really going to value these 20 days off because they were absolutely outworked in every facet, especially when it came to winning battles and going into the dirty areas last night. It's almost like they got defeated and deflated because they were playing pretty well with the Islanders in the first 10 to 15 minutes of that game and didn't get the result. And it sort of really killed their momentum from there on out, in my opinion.
Oh, no, for sure. Ever since they gave up that first goal, it just seemed like it just kept going downhill from there. And sometimes those giving up that first goal is, especially how it happened, it can be absolutely heartbreaking. And that's where the maturity and the age is showing for this team. Is sometimes when they give up that first goal, sometimes they just curl up in a ball and they're just kind of like, let's just phone it in. And that's kind of what it felt like for me. But I know you're coming back from Denver. That's a tough area to play in regardless. You had a couple of days off to kind of regain and kind of recenter, but you beat the best team in hockey the way that you did. You got to build off of that, and they didn't do that. Like you said, every facet of the game, they just looked like they were getting beat. It just was just an ugly game. And yeah, they're going to have clunkers here and there for sure. I mean, every team's going to have a clunker, but like you said, division game, you got to play up for it. And it's a team that you were 2 points behind in the standings and could have probably jumped. And
you would have jumped. You would have tied them and had the tiebreaker in the third place. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And now this is an Islanders team that took that 2 points and now sit 4 points ahead of the Philadelphia Flyers. And it makes a tough predicament because you got Montreal and Boston with 63 points apiece in currently the wild cards 1 and 2. Then you have the Florida Panthers that the Flyers now trail by 2 points. And tied with them, you got those Toronto Maple Leafs and Washington Capitals who are still going to try to make a push for the playoffs as well. So it's tough sledding. And now the Islanders sitting in that position trade with maybe a team on the outside looking in behind that logjam, the New Jersey Devils. The Islanders added Andre Palat, a 26th third-round pick, a 27th sixth-round pick, and the Devils get Maxim, and your voice is as good as mine. Thank you. Simplikoff. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, just my brain's shot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but that's all right. No, hey, you got the proper pronunciation there. So right there, that's an interesting deal. What's your take on that deal, Brian?
I honestly love it for the Devils because you're getting youth there, and you're getting a gritty guy who can score goals, but he can play a physical game. So he's like a Tom Wilson type almost. A little bit of youth injection for that team, I think, was a big thing. And I didn't see if they did or not, but did the Islanders take the entire contract for Andre Palat?
I'm not positive. It would make sense because of getting those picks alongside.
So if they did that and you're taking Max Simplikoff, first of all, you're freeing up a ton of cap space because I think he's making like $6.5 million over the next year or two. I think he might have 2 years left on his contract. But that's a great deal for the Island, or at least for the Devils anyway. You're moving that contract. You're getting you're getting a young player. You're giving up 2 extra picks, but I'm sure you're giving up the 2 extra picks for him to take the contract. So, I mean, good move by the Islanders because you're getting a guy who is playoff experience. He's won a couple cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's a voice in the locker room that you're going to be able to rely on come playoff time if the Islanders do get there. And it's depth offensively. I mean, he's not the guy that he was in Tampa, but he's going to be a valuable asset for this team as the deeper we get into the season. So I love this deal for both teams, honestly.
Right. Right. It is a win-win type of deal. And it's interesting. Always rotten bedfellows, usually those mid-Atlantic teams trading here in a rarity. But yeah, the Islanders do take on Palat's entire $6 million salary cap hit for this season and next. But I'm assuming this was previous to this deal via Puckpedia. They say they have current cap space of that $6 million. So they have it at least to spend. So they had the money free, and that may be already incorporating this where they had even more cap space as that, cap ceiling continues to climb over, this season and the next. So it's a good move for the Islanders who are looking to take, a stranglehold on their current playoff position here in the Metropolitan Division. One thing that was a good news for the Flyers, Brian, is that you saw Rasmus Ristolainen take 16 plus minutes of ice time in his first game back after missing the previous 6 games due to that upper body injury. He had 1 takeaway during the game, so he looked pretty good, and he's a valuable commodity both for a potential trade deadline deal, but also if the Flyers want to get back into this thing.
No, for sure, he's going to be a valuable asset if they decide not to move him. I mean. I wouldn't be in a rush to trade Risto unless somebody's absolutely wowing me. Like I said earlier, if you want to include him in a piece to go get Shane Wright in that package, that's the only way that I would really ship Risto is if I'm getting something of value back. But I mean, if you don't have to move him, don't move him. If nobody's going to ask for him, like if you can get away with getting Shane Wright without him, great. That's just going to make this even better because his presence on that ice just makes his team so much different. Having that physical presence on the back end, on the blue line, it's teams just tend to act a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess timid in a way. I mean, I know it didn't look that way last night, but once Risto makes his presence felt on the ice and he starts laying a couple good hits, teams tend to back off a little bit, but I mean, he's such an asset to this organization. He's an asset to the defensive core. So it's always good to have him back. It's a shame that every time he's off the ice, it's extremely noticeable.
Yeah, it really is. He really is. He provides that calming presence, which was not really, indicative of his early career play, but he's really sustained that as he's gone on. And he's got that real heavy shot too. So he brings that, and it's not, purely, he's not a one-dimensional defenseman. So he could be a good asset, for this Flyers team. Like I said, come trade deadline. Before we go on to the trade rumors linked to the Flyers, Brian, is there anything you want to highlight from the game with the Islanders, or more importantly, looking ahead for the Flyers in terms of their schedule? They have a back-to-back coming up tomorrow against the Blue Jackets. Like we said, who were a disappointing team, but have been, a little hotter recently, putting up a record of 6-4 in their last 10. And then they followed that up with a back-to-back on Thursday against the Boston Bruins, both games on the road. So what is, in terms of the Flyers, what do they need to improve upon what we saw from the Islanders? What do they need to fix to be, successful in that back-to-back?
I think the big thing, and I think it's something that they failed to do, was taking away the goaltender's eyes against the New York Islanders. I think they have to do that big time in the next 2 games here. And for me also, and we haven't seen it a lot. We've seen it a lot more recently, but we haven't seen it a lot this year, is continuing to set the tone of these games here. They did it in Colorado. They did it in Utah, regardless of what the result wound up being. I believe they did it. Where did they start off of that road trip? Why am I blanking on where they were? Where did they go? Vegas. They did the same thing in Vegas.
Yep.
You set the tone in all those games, and the results, like I said, 2-0-1. That's not a bad road trip. That's 5 of 6 points. I love that. Got to keep doing it. Get the first goal, get the first 2. If they battle back, they battle back. But from the Flyers, I got to set the tone. We're seeing, I think the Islanders game here was a good example of this team trying to dig themselves out of a hole but sometimes the hole gets too deep. They got to be the one setting the tone here. So taking away the goalie's eyes and setting the tone in these next 2 games, I think could definitely result in someone's and they tend to play the Boston Bruins really well. So I really like that matchup, and hopefully Vladar's back. I know he's been practicing, so if they get him back in one of these 2 games, I think that's going to definitely help the Flyers' chances.
Right. No, agreed. So when it comes to, these trade rumors, right, I want to remind the fam here that it's important to hit that like, hit that comment, hit that share, right? And if you're looking forward to the upcoming Super Bowl, I know this is a hockey show, but if you're looking for boxes and a great way to support a really good cause, right? You can hit me up on Facebook, direct message me at Rob Povia, right? $5 a box helps support this cheer squad coming out of North Carolina that is looking to take on this awesome trip. I want to get the details right before I move on real quick, Brian. I should have probably had this keyed up. But I did want to give some love to this cheer squad. But basically, they have this upcoming competition. So it's $5 a box. You can hit me up on Facebook, right? It's always fun to play boxes for come Super Bowl, right? Take this offline. But bottom line is, right, when it comes to the Flyers, there's 2 ways that this team can go. Now, if they can continue to stay in the playoff discussion, Brian, right, there's a chance that the Flyers could shock people and be actual buyers, right? There's been rumors linked to them where they're obviously looking to target a 4th-line center. Not that Lane Peterson has looked bad per se, but they should shop for an upgrade over Abels. And the Flyers have been linked to Teddy Bluger, David Kampf, maybe even a reunion with Ryan Poehling, which would be interesting. Shane Wright could also fit that need on a what's that?
You can't have him back.
No. You like him? Yeah.
Oh, I love Ryan Poehling.
Yeah. Robert Thomas, Briz mentions as well. That's another way that they could go, and I wouldn't hate that because that's a similar line to Shane Wright. Where it's sort of helping you now and helping you for the future. Still 26 years old. Robert Thomas is, right? But in terms of Flyers potentially being buyers, do you put stock in that, or do you think that you're going to see this team? Do you expect to see this team be sellers, Brian?
Actually, I'm expecting to do a little bit of both. I think there's going to be pieces that they are going to move, and I don't think they're going to move for much, but I also do think they're going to bring in players to make this team better. Now, I don't think Robert Thomas is going to be one of those guys. Not that I wouldn't want him here, but just from everything that I've read, any link to him being traded from the St. Louis Blues has been debunked already. The Blues would be stupid to trade him right now. He's the captain. I'm sorry, he's not the captain. He's one of the assistant captains. He's still 26 years old. He's still young enough that this team can retool around him, and he can still be a tremendous asset for the St. Louis Blues. I do think there's definitely pieces to buy on. Like you said, we're seeing players coming out of a lot of organizations. You have your Artemi Panarin, you have your Blake Colemans, you have your Shane Wrights, you have a bunch of players that are going to be available at the deadline. Now, it's just going to be a matter of what the prices are going to be for these guys and whether or not, one, you're going to give them a contract extension, or if you want to pay that price to get somebody in here. For me, I'm looking at young. If I'm the Flyers and there's young players all over the place, I absolutely 100% would say look into every single one who's under the age of 27. And that includes, and I know Priz brought him up earlier, and I kind of spoiled it a little bit, but he didn't. I'm 100% throwing the checkbook at Jesper Wallstedt. And obviously, he solves a lot of issues for the Flyers as far as goaltending goes. You don't have to rush him into the starting spot. You can still start him behind Dan Vladar. You might be able to send down Sam Ersson to the AHL and let him work with Alexei Kolosov. But in the other side, you're probably going to have to send Bjarnason the other way. So, like, if we're talking a package for Jesper Wallstedt, if you throw Shane Wright out the window, fine, so be it. 2027 first. Bobby Brink, who Minnesota is apparently really wants, according to a bunch of reports out there, and you throw Carson Bjarnason in there, I think that gets a very good start to a package to get a very young franchise goaltender, which for some reason I don't understand why there's reports of him being shopped. But if he is available and you want it, and he addresses a massive need, and this organization says, or not the organization, the fan base says, we need a franchise goalie. We need a franchise goalie. There's your franchise goalie. And he's already looked 1,000 times better than he has when he started this season. So this is a kid that's starting to find his own. He's developed really well. This is a guy, again, 23 years old. So I'm not too worried about any lulls that he's going to have. The big picture for this kid, he's a franchise guy. There's no doubt about that. But I'm a conservative buyer.
Right. And I'd hate to lose Brink to do that, but I think you have to because of, I mean, despite, Priz points out he is 0-3 in his last 3 starts with an 8.15, but he's still developing. And then you throw in a potential change of scenery, could change things around there. So I think you have to kind of, despite as good as Bjarnason's looked at the AHL level, it's at the AHL level where you've seen success at the NHL level. It's a way where you can, take what you've drafted and then trade up to the, reach that high level up, so to speak. Right. So I don't hate it. And like I said, if you trade Brink, it gives them more flexibility on the wing, clears that up. But I love Bobby. He's my namesake. I want to keep him, but it'll be tough. Michael Hayes chiming in again. What's the next team in the league to go back to a retro brand jersey-wise, Brian and Povey? Any thoughts?
I have no idea, but I know they're supposed to be doing third jersey league-wide for every team next year. That's involving a random color. I think they're calling them – I think it's going to be the NHL's version of the Color Rush jerseys that the NFL did. So We'll see. I don't know if anybody's going to be doing any rebranding to my knowledge.
One thing that would come to my mind, and you showed it to me when you showed me that Mike Modano puck sign that you got, that gorgeous gem pre-show. What about a retro Dallas Stars? Have they done that?
Ooh,
I'm talking the Modano era.
Like the 2000s Dallas Stars jersey? Yeah. They actually did that this year. They did that.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, it's their alternate jersey this year.
Cool.
So instead of it being the gold, everything's the same. It's the current colors, but it's that 2000 star theme. I actually think I like it better.
Yeah, I do too.
The silver is just so much nicer.
Yeah.
Silver is just so much nicer.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to throw out another name for you all, and this would necessitate, right now, Florida has a more likelihood of reaching the playoffs being at 59 points, but unfortunately they have the Canadiens and Bruins in their division in the Atlantic there, so they have to get through a lot to get into that conversation, both within the division as well as for a wild card. If they should fall out, and they might be interested in potentially freeing up some of their salary cramp, and because they're really up against it and have some real serious constraints. I would like the Flyers to target Anton Lundell, and I think he'd be a really good fit here. He's that high skill forward at center, only 24 years old. It would be a really good get, and I believe that there have been inquiries and trade talks. He's been the source of some names that the Flyers have been involved with. It ranges from a Lundell, it ranges to a Blake Coleman, who
Mhm.
could be a reliable goal scorer and a physical forward who could help in the dirty areas and winning battles. And he brings that depth and experience. That would be if they were trying to make a push more for this year. And really, Brian, they're staring down the barrel of a gun right now in terms of if the Flyers do not make the postseason this year, this will be the longest drought in Philadelphia Flyers history with 6 years of missed playoffs. So, it's going to be really interesting whether this team is, sellers or buyers come this deadline. A few other names that are out there scrolling through. We got Jack McBain from we just saw from the Utah Hockey Club. He's a potential target due to his size. He's
Mhm.
6'4", has plenty of speed, penalty killing abilities, and is 25 years old. Barrett Hayton, I like Oliver
Oh,
Moore, Chicago Blackhawks,
wait, what?
Maverick Bourque.
Wait, seriously? They're toying around with trading Oliver Moore. That's Swoopy's guy.
Yeah, that would. I mean, these are all names that are potential trade targets and areas of interest. Obviously, I don't know if Chicago would depart with them, but I mean, they have to really retool out there in Chicago as well, with sitting at 50 points on the season and not really progressing. But I don't know if these aren't all gettable gets, but maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would love to go out and get a couple of the last names that you had said. Oliver Moore is a big one that I would look at because you can still relatively put him in a third or fourth line center position. Let him grow a little bit with some of the guys that are here. Um, but I would be shocked if he wound up getting moved at all. Who was the last one you said? That was another intriguing one, but I'm blanking on who it was.
Um, what you call it? Hold on, let me get back to it real quick.
No, you're good. In the
According to this
meantime,
report, no, no,
yeah,
no, you're
no.
good. You're good.
In the meantime, I'll throw this question to you, Ravi. How much would you trade to Ottawa to bring G back one more go around? Veteran knows the Flyers could help the kids.
It would have to be very little, honestly.
Mhm.
That would almost. I would almost wait till his contract's up. Like they could have done that this offseason and they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I don't see it in the cards. Instead, I think you have to build from the veterans that are on this squad, Mike. And honestly, a guy that could pass the torch that G helped keep burning alive here is Travis Konechny. And he's been a guy that's led by example on the
Mhm.
ice and off the ice and can be that veteran that could help these kids. I think you have enough on this team. And Coots, for all the, man, people are vicious online about
Yeah.
Sean Couturier right now, but he still offers that in the locker room as well.
No, for sure, 100%. I'm 100% with you. I wouldn't go anywhere near G. I love him. He's a Philly legend. His number will be hanging in the rafters, in the Flyers Hall of Fame. He's going to deserve every bit of it. But he spent his time here. He deserves a chance to compete for a Stanley Cup, and he's going to probably get somewhat of that in Ottawa. It's just going to be a question of how deep they go.
Right.
That's what she said. But
the name that you were asking about, Noah Ostlund, Buffalo Sabres, 21-year-old
oh
center.
yeah. He's not bad either. He's still got some developing to do, but he definitely has some potential there.
Right.
I see him more like a bottom six
Yeah.
center, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Everybody has to have a role. You can't have everybody that's playing top six forwards. So you got to
Right.
be able to have your third line checking guy, which is where he's kind of probably fallen in, but he can also be a
Sure.
fourth line guy.
Right. And that's an area of need right now, as we're saying, because even when you had Abels in there, right? I mean, you still can upgrade from there. You know what I mean? Ultimately. But these seem like a lot of target for, for the continual, for building for the future. It seems like there's more rumors of that and less rumors of them going after an established veteran that could help them, get back into the thick of things when it comes to playoff time. But in the end, I think that's the good move. Like I would say in the past, and you look at Colorado, right, when they added from the Islanders, why am I
Brock
blanking on his
Nelson.
name? Brock Nelson, and how he really helped them in terms come playoff time, right? A Blake Coleman is that type of player that's being talked about now. I just think that furthers the logjam for your developing players, and I'd rather rebuild from within and allow them to win and lose with that squad. Because a great thing that I'm seeing so far this year, Brian, is that there's a lot of continuity within the locker room, a lot of camaraderie within that locker room, and it's stemming from Rick Tocchet's coaching style and how he's keeping the lines consistently together and working. And like I said before, playing Mitchie on the left hand and seeing his play develop. He had a strong game against Colorado with 3 points. So I'd like to just continue that. Let this team win and lose together. I feel buying would be a mistake, as would a fire sale. So what we'll ultimately see from the Flyers is something in between.
Yeah, and that's where I think they should be a conservative buyer. Be very picky about what you want to bring in here, because I'm okay with not really making any big splashes. You want to sell off a couple pieces here and there, great. I'm all for that. Help create some space for some of these younger guys to come up and be able to be successful. You get plenty of ice time. That for me is bigger than anything. But if you have, like I said, if you have an opportunity to go out and get somebody that's under the age of 25, that is going to be the potential to be an impact player in the NHL, take it. At least give them a call and say, hey, what's it going to take? We got this guy, and this. We could package some stuff together. Because they do have the depth, they do have the talent down in the minors right now that they can get some deals done and be able to sign some maybe free agents to fill some holes down in the AHL for the remainder of the season. So there's options there. Now, I think the biggest question mark on what they do at this trade deadline after the Olympic break is going to be Porter Martone. What is he going to do when the college season is done? Is he going to sign his ELC and is he going to come over, or is he going to go back to college for another year and just not worry about burning the season, the 1 year of his ELC that he's going to have? So that to me is like the biggest question is what happens with Porter Martone. Because I think if they have an idea of whether or not he's going to be playing for the Flyers this year at any point, if he has the interest to sign his ELC at any point, that's going to make a big difference on what they do as far as this offseason goes. But I think with this trade deadline, with some of these players that are popping up, some of these names, they could really put a swing on this rebuild real quick with a couple moves.
Yeah, they really could. Pris chiming in, continuing his comment, and Elliot Freeman said Thomas is available for a blow me away offer. He'd be 30 when the Blues expect to be a consistent playoff threat. Binnington to Montreal could also happen. I've also heard rumors of Binnington to the Flyers to settle down our goalie situation. Now, I'm not know if I'm ready for that, because after all, we should see Dan Vladar, who is on the precipice of returning from his IR stint. I figure he probably could have played on Monday night against the Isles, but instead it makes sense for Tocchet to reserve him for the back-to-back, where you'd have to go with both goaltenders in that scenario anyway. But Bennington has been mentioned, and the market for goaltending just got a little thinner today with the news of Thatcher Demko being out for the rest of the season, as he was being discussed in trade talk as well, Brian.
Yeah, no, that's a heartbreaker for, well, I shouldn't say a heartbreaker for Vancouver, because they're probably going to win the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes. And to Michael's comment earlier, they are an absolute dumpster fire, and it's just going to get worse as they continue to get through the remainder of the last 30 games of the season for them. But you'd never want to see that. You never want to see your starter go down for that long.
Speaking of which, do the Flyers make a push for, they didn't wind up getting Quinn Hughes, but could they make a push for Elias Pettersson?
The Flyers? I would say as far away from him as possible.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One, I don't like his attitude. He's an absolute head case, and I think he'd be bad fit for that locker room. Two, I think he kind of fills. He doesn't really fill any of the holes. He doesn't answer any of the question marks for what the Flyers are trying to do. He's a passer first. He's not much of a goal scorer, but my big thing with him is his attitude. I don't like his. He's a head case. I think he would be an absolute cancer in that locker room.
Sometimes I set him up and you just spike him down because that's exactly what I would say in response to that.
Yeah.
Mikey going, Denver Barkey can shoot the puck, love his style of hockey on this team. Yeah, he's looking, man. He's looking on the power play too against Colorado, and against Styles too without the result. So, to his point earlier, I think you had another comment from him up before that.
Oh yeah, Morgan Frost from Calgary.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see a reunion there because he didn't fit the scheme here. Then he won't now. And then that comment that you had on at the latest. Yeah, I hate Binnington, but his attitude is just as fiery as Patrick Wall was. And you need that sometimes. You need a goaltender with edge. We know that a little thing about that here in Philadelphia. And if you're in the Philadelphia area, or even if you're listening to us from Canada, that we've had several fans from all over the globe. Be sure to like, be sure to comment, be sure to share if you like what you're hearing. We have, programs here for every genre, every sport, right? Don't guess when we're coming on live. If you hit that bell for notifications, you're going to get notified right away and chime in and become part of the fam, sit at the table, break some bread and talk some sports for the fan by the fan. Brian, we got roughly about 10 minutes left to go. In terms of the Flyers, are there any untouchables on this roster right now?
I mean, obviously Michkov. He's going to be the biggest untouchable for me. I'm not letting him go. And Trevor Zegras is another untouchable. Those two guys. These are two of the players that you want to build around right now. Anybody else for me is essentially fair game. Some of these contracts are going to be a little bit tougher to move. I don't see a Sean Couturier getting traded as much as I've heard some people say to move him. With the way he's playing, really tough especially with how much terms left on that deal.
Yeah,
it's really tough to get a team to buy in on a player like him. I think he's going to be a candidate for a buyout when he's eligible, which I think is either next year or the year after that. So
really,
we might be stuck with another year of Sean Couturier, but it's really tough to move a deal like that when you have a player that's not really playing all that well. He just re-signed Dvorak. I don't think you move him because I think that's a dickhead move. It's just not a good look unless your idea was to trade.
Oh, where's that meanwhile in Philly post again? I'll get that back up here.
Definitely a dickhead move. I hate
like
when
getting
teams
plowed
do that.
in.
Yeah, exactly. Like getting plowed in after digging yourself out. Sons of bitches. What's up, Greg? Greg chiming in saying, "What up, fellas?"
What's up, Greg?
Disagrees to the poll. Also goes on to say, I kind of feel the skid was a blessing in disguise. As fun as they were earlier when playing this well, to fight back in every game gets exhausting and it isn't sustainable. I couldn't agree with that more, Robbie.
Yeah, it does. It's not sustainable. And everything's a teaching moment too. Mm-hmm. So, like it builds adversity, it builds character. And, in the end, imagine Flower decides to unretire. What would you go for him?
No. No. And to jump back on Binnington real quick, Robbie, before not to cut you off, but Binnington will want starter minutes, and you can't do that to Vladar. Another dickhead move.
Agreed.
But go ahead.
Agreed. I think with the talent that's currently here, I'm not looking for another patchwork goaltender. I'm looking for maybe you put your pieces together to upgrade. Right, in your your trade scenario with Minnesota, Brian.
Yeah. So that's the only way I would do that.
Right. Well, I mean, I trade.
You son of a bitch! I said you don't trade him, and then you go ahead and you say that.
That's probably a response to that. Would be the what's up, Tommy? That would be the response to making a move like that for certain. Yeah. But I think ultimately you got to build. TK is untouchable in my book. Like I said, if you do potentially or eventually buy out Coots, then TK is your next captain, without a doubt. And he's still performing, So I mean, he's taken this team and put it on his shoulders. So definitely agree that TZ is untouchable. We had Trevor Zegras. He had a career breath of fresh air getting out of Anaheim. I think that's going to be a very big on the to-do list, is to get him under contract, Brian, for sure.
100%. I think they're already talking about it.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they haven't been talking about it since day one.
Right. Or just be like, oh, we're going to get the deal done after the season. For now, let's focus on hockey. I could also see that as well. I think we discussed that a few weeks back too. That way he could be, his headspace in a really good space.
100%. And that's exactly what Pat Verbeek is doing with Leo Carlson and Cutter Gauthier. Both of their contracts are up at the end of this year. They need extensions. His plan, let them play. Just let them go. Let them basically set the market for themselves, and he's going to handle their contracts at the end of the season.
Right.
And I think that's what Danny Briere should do with the Zegras too.
Right. This is kind of a given. Tyson Forrester's untouchable because he's not healthy. So, but I mean, he also, you like what you saw from him. When it comes to center ice, as much as I hate to see it, but if you wanted to put packages together to get one of these other young center icemen, and Noah Cates had to go in that deal, I'd be okay with that. So I think, I know we're talking untouchables. He's a touchable.
Yeah.
Not like that, but
gross. Might have to say bye to Robbie for the rest of the show. I mean, the good thing about Noah Cates is, at least, if you don't move him and you need a room at center, he can play on the wing. So, you might have to shift a couple things around, but if he's got to go, he's got to go. But at least he's got some versatility. You can put him on the left wing and let him play the left wing, and let whoever they get to play center can always come in and play center too.
Right. And once again, we started off the show talking about how there's actually 2 trade deadlines this year. The official trade deadline is March 6th, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. But there's definitely an Olympic roster freeze on February 4th, which means there won't be able to have any trades. No waiver. You can't waive anybody either unless they've, I think, played in 19 of the last 20 games as well. So, but if someone played in 19 of the last 20 games, you're probably not waiving them. Right? So and it'll freeze for the length that they're over there in Italy. Playing for country, which is good, and it'll be a nice respite for some of the younger Flyers that won't be making that trip, be able to work on their game as well. But in terms of making a move before this first deadline, odds that we'll see the Flyers make a deal before the freeze, Brian?
I say probably less than 10%. Just because what are they really going to do in the meantime? They're not going to be able to really skate. They're not going to practice. They're probably going to rest up. The good thing would be off-ice camaraderie, kind of building a relationship and some chemistry that way. But, if I'm making a deal for somebody, I would rather do it after, personally, because one, you're coming right up on the trade deadline anyway. So, teams are going to already be thinking about what their returns are going to be for them. And I'm sure they're going to be doing that entire time throughout the Olympic break. And 2, you can get these guys right out on the ice. And that to me is most important, is building that on ice chemistry as soon as possible. If they got to sit 2.5, 3 weeks, I mean, it's not really going to do you much good to go for them now or before. For me, it's all about after. And I mean, we're already seeing a trickling of some moves. And for some reason, the New York Islanders seem to be the only team moving. Even getting Carter Soucy from the New York Rangers, which was, believe it or not, in both teams' existence, was the 4th time they ever made a trade together.
I know, dude. Broughton Bedfellows, all 3 of the teams, man. I don't like it. They're trying to screw the Flyers here.
It sounds like
collusion. It's collusion. If you saw this in a fantasy football league, you'd yell collusion.
Oh, I'm calling it now anyway. Yeah, these teams also aren't supposed to be trading together. They're doing all kinds of in division trading right now. I don't like it.
Right.
But no, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna just see what's up. I'm gonna see, just asking prices for now. Come up with some packages. Give myself that time, and as soon as the roster freeze comes undone, you're gonna send them right in. Send them right in. Be like, yo, let's go. Jesper Wallstat, what do you need? Shane Wright, what do you need? And like I said, if these trades hit the way that I would think they would, and they continue to develop the way I think they're going to, this is going to be a massive step in the rebuild for the Flyers.
Right on. What up, D?
What up, D?
See it from his logo. He's 4-for-4 Detroit. That's good to see. Good to see. Yeah, I was right. The trade deadline is March 6th. Go memory. And the Flyers have some games from now until then. Before the break, as we said before, they have a home and home with, not home and home, a back-to-back with the Blue Jackets and Bruins this week. Saturday, they finish off the week hosting the Los Angeles Kings.
Mm-hmm.
Then next week, they host the Capitals, the Senators on the road. Oh, no, and then that takes them to the Olympic break. When they come back on the 25th, they're playing against the Capitals on the road, against the Rangers, hosting the Bruins, on the road against the Maple Leafs, hosting the Mammoth, and that'll be the last game before the trade deadline. If you notice, Brian, there's a lot of Metropolitan Division games there,
Mm-hmm.
2 with the Capitals, Rangers, right? Games against the Maple Leafs. This is going to really determine where the Flyers playoff standing is come before that trade deadline. So to me, I think the likelihood that we'll see a move following the Olympic break and the freeze is way more likely. I agree with your 10% because of that, because this is going to be a real benchmark of, will the Flyers set that franchise record, missing 6 years in a row? And will they be packing it up and making deals for for the future, or do they still have a playoff push in for them to make deals? So there's a lot to be determined. There's a lot to see, and there's a lot of decisions that Danny B and Jonesy need to make from here till then.
No, 100% agree. I mean, and that's the biggest reason too, is you're probably going to see some teams here and there probably make a move or two, but you definitely want to see where some of these pieces are going to fall heading into the February 4th roster freeze. And then you can plan accordingly from there, because teams are linked to a lot of players out there. The big fish right now is Artemi Panarin. It's just kind of trying to figure out and listen to see where he might wind up. There's still a couple teams in the Eastern Conference that he could wind up staying with. So you still have to worry about, potentially have to worry about an Artemi Panarin. The other thing too is this conference is so tight. I believe the Rangers are the only team that's under 500 in this entire conference, which is bananas, by the way. So, you want to figure out a way to survive to the break, see what some of these other teams are doing, get some feelers out there over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then once the roster freeze comes out, come out firing. Deals everywhere, worry about getting this team back to where you need it to be. So this way you can start gaining some of these points back that you lost earlier. So I expect them to be somewhat active in a couple of different ways. So, we'll just see how it goes.
Right. Absolutely. That's a good way to end it. That's a good way to end it tonight. I think that's a great synopsis of tonight's show. Hey, fam, thank you so much for all the comments. You're the lifeblood here at A2D Radio. And coming up tomorrow, we got A2D Wednesday night. Tom and the boys discussing the latest thing for the Sixers, probably talking Eagles, because they talk Eagles on every show here. Yep. That's just how it is. And go football for sure. But get your hockey fix here every Tuesday night here at Flyers Talk A2D. But we got wrestling shows. We have the Final Whistle with Brad Ryer and Rob Brinkman Friday night. Hey, thanks, Priz. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you sticking with us tonight, man. God bless you. God bless your health. And hey, if you're in the South Jersey area and you're ailing from all the snow shoveling that we all been doing, you got to hit up the doc, Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy. He's got 2 locations, Burlington, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Check out our doc, make them yours. Visit them, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. For Matt Tessuti, who's off tonight, my boy, Brian Daly, this is Rob Povia. Let's see some Flyers wins. I want to see at least a win over the Columbus Blue Jackets this week in that vicious back-to-back. We'll catch you next time, fam. Thank you so much. Peace.
Have a good week, everybody.